So picture this for a second. You're just walking into a public building, right? Or maybe some regulated institution. And suddenly, a single government official stops you. What if I told you that this one bureaucrat had the absolute power to decide what you were allowed to eat for lunch? Like literally saying, nope, no turkey sandwich for you today. Or what if they could dictate what clothes you're permitted to wear in that space? Now imagine that incredibly personal choice being controlled by someone else. Not based on some established, well-known law that you can look up, but simply based on their personal mood or preference on that exact day. Wild, right?
But see, here is where the real danger actually lies. Because the core issue we're facing in governance, it isn't actually enforcement itself. I mean, let's be real, rules have to exist for societies to function at all. The true problem? It's uncontrolled discretion. It's the power of an official to just apply their own personal interpretation in real time, completely on the fly, without any immediate structural limits holding them back. When someone has that kind of unchecked authority to just make up the rules as they go along, well, citizens are left completely in the dark.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a fascinating and honestly highly practical framework designed to solve exactly this problem. We're going to dive into a proposed system that does something pretty incredible. It manages to maintain the necessary speed and efficiency of government operations while successfully stripping away the arbitrary, unchecked power of individual officials. Basically, we're going to learn how to bind the bureaucrat. Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the problem with discretion. 2, a dual control solution. 3, the order validity loop. 4, the authority removal loop. And finally, number 5, the future of fair governance.
All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, the problem with discretion, specifically unstructured power.
So, as things stand right now, individual bureaucrats hold a massive amount of unstructured power in incredibly sensitive areas of our daily lives. Think about things like dress codes in public spaces or food restrictions in regulated environments. And this setup creates 3 distinct failures. First off, unstructured discretion means there are no strict, uniform constraints. You could literally have one officer allow something while another officer standing right next to them in the exact same building prohibits the exact same thing. Second, there's a massive risk of arbitrary enforcement. When discretion is uncontrolled like this, you and I face total uncertainty when it comes to everyday compliance. And third, the accountability loop is just extremely weak. Sure, courts exist, but they usually only step in long after the fact, way after the damage is already done. There is currently no automatic system in place to instantly stop a pattern of misuse.
At the absolute heart of this conflict is a really simple truth. As citizens, what we desperately need from our institutions is legal clarity. We need to know the rules so we can actually follow them, right? But uncontrolled discretion replaces that much-needed legal clarity with moral judgment and cultural bias. When an official's personal cultural bias starts influencing how they enforce the rules, the law ceases to be blind. It becomes completely unpredictable and, fundamentally, unfair.
Moving right along to Section 2, a dual control solution. Let's look at a balanced framework. So, the solution proposed in our source material is known as a dual control governance framework. And I gotta say, it's a brilliant compromise. It does 2 absolutely crucial things at the exact same time. First, it still allows for immediate executive action, meaning the government isn't bogged down by endless red tape before making a decision. But second, it enforces continuous judicial and personal accountability control. Think of it like a really fast car. The car can still drive fast, but suddenly it has these highly sensitive automatic safety brakes installed to constantly check the driver's authority. The system isn't slow, but crucially, it is no longer unchecked.
Okay, Section 3, the order validity loop. Let's talk about temporary authority.
So how does this actually work in practice? Well, when a bureaucrat issues a restriction, say they decide to ban a certain type of clothing, it goes into effect immediately, no delay whatsoever. But instantly, a timer starts ticking. It enters a strict 1-hour provisional validity window. Step 1 is the first judicial review. A special bench automatically reviews that order within that single hour. If the court agrees, boom, the order continues. If the court disagrees, or even if they just do nothing, the order automatically expires right then and there. Then we have Step 2, appeal progression. If the order survives, it can move up to higher courts. But here's the kicker. At every single level, there are only 2 possible outcomes: concurrence, meaning the order lives, or non-concurrence, meaning the order collapses. There's no murky middle ground here. The default is no longer permanent power. The new default is temporary authority under strict, continuous review. Which brings us to Step 3, and a really massive threshold, a 2/3 majority. Let's say the judiciary ultimately invalidates an order through non-concurrence, but the administrative system desperately still wants it enforced. Well, the decision leaves the hands of the bureaucrats entirely. It gets kicked straight to the legislature. But to actually bypass the judiciary, they require a 2/3 legislative supermajority. That is huge. So, the crucial takeaway here is that the final authority completely shifts away from an individual's personal discretion and is instead handed firmly over to democratic legitimacy.
Let's transition over to Section 4, the authority removal loop, which is all about structured consequences. Now this is where it gets really interesting. Every single time a court registers a non-concurrence, meaning they invalidate a bureaucrat's order, it triggers an automatic consequence directly for that specific official. We are completely bypassing those drawn-out, endless disciplinary hearings. The system simply tracks one single signal. Was the discretion wrong? A first invalid order results in an automatic 1-year suspension of that bureaucrat's discretionary authority. A second time? That's a 3-year suspension. A third? 5 full years. Over time, repeated misuse automatically reduces an official's future ability to misuse their power. It's swift, it's structured, and it is entirely mathematical.
Finally, Section 5, Future Fair Governance, and the 5 major outcomes we can expect.
If we implement this framework, it practically guarantees 5 major outcomes. 1. No arbitrary discretion. Individual interpretation simply can't override structured review anymore. 2. Fast governance. Executive actions still happen right away, keeping the state efficient. 3. Automatic accountability. There's zero need for a separate, sluggish punishment system because the consequences are literally baked right in. 4. Equal treatment of officers. Because the mechanism is automatic, high-ranking officials absolutely cannot shield themselves from consequences just based on their rank. And 5. The democratic fallback. If judicial consensus fails, the power reverts back to the legislature, requiring that huge supermajority. As you can see, we absolutely can structure governance and bind it to continuous validation without losing executive speed.
I really want to leave you with this powerful philosophical note from our source material. It says, "Power is not dangerous when it is used. Power is dangerous when it is unreviewed." The idea here is simple, but honestly, it's so profound. You don't slow down governance, you structure it. You don't just remove discretion entirely. You bind it to continuous validation and real consequences. So as you go about your day today, I'm going to leave you with a provocative question to consider. Where else in our daily lives, and in our society as a whole, are we accepting unreviewed authority simply because we're used to it? And what would happen if we demanded a dual control system instead? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep questioning the structures around you.